Hello, everyone. This is Mr. Kissinger at the Citizenship Academy in Syracuse, New York. And this is 5th grade math module 3, lesson 7. Today we're going to be solving two-step word problems with fractions. So if we look at our first word problem here, we're going to be using our RDW strategy. So that stands for read, draw, write. For each one of these problems. So when I start my problem, what I'm going to do is I'm going to write RDW on the left side of my paper. So you're going to start by doing that. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of cross these out as I do them. So the first letter here is R. That stands for read. I'm going to read my problem. It says, George weeded 1/5 of the garden, and Summer weeded some too. When they were finished, 2/3 of the garden still needed to be weeded. What fraction of the garden did Summer weed? So we're looking for the fraction of the garden that Summer weeded. We know that George weeded 1/5 of the garden. And when they were finished, 2/3 of the garden still needed to be weeded. So now that we've read our problem, we figured out what we're looking for, I can cross out my R. Next, I'm going to draw a tape diagram. My tape diagram is going to represent the whole garden. How much of the garden needs to be weeded? Now, first, I'm going to shade in about 1/5, or I'm going to section off 1/5 of my garden. And this here, I'm going to put a G next underneath it. This is the section that George weeded. We also know that Summer weeded some of the garden as well. I'm going to put an S there under the part that Summer weeded. We know George's part is 1/5. We don't know what Summer's part is. And when they were finished, 2/3 of the garden still needed to be weeded. So we know this section over here is 2/3. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to add up the part that George weeded and the part that wasn't weeded at all, the part that still needs to be weeded, and get everything except for the part that Summer weeded, and then we'll subtract from 1. We'll subtract from all of the whole garden that needed to be weeded. So let's start by adding 1/5 plus 2/3. And to find my lowest common denominator here so I can add together, again, I can't add when I have two different denominators, so I need to make them the same. I'm just going to multiply 5 times 3. I know I can get 15 as a common denominator, and 1/5 is going to turn into, well, I need to multiply by 3 to get to 15 down here. I'll multiply by 1 by 3 on the top. So I know that 1/5 is equal to 3/15. I know that to get to 15 on the bottom on this fraction, I'm going to need to multiply my 3 by 5. So I also need to multiply my 2 by 5. A little parentheses here just so we don't get confused. And I'm going to get 15, of course, on my denominator. And 2 times 5 is 10. When I add those together, I get 13/15. So this section here plus this section here is 13/15. So the whole thing, this whole piece here on the bottom, we know that this is 1. And 1 is 15/15. So if I'm going to subtract 13/15 from 1, I'm really subtracting 13/15 from 15/15 to figure out how much Summer weeded. Next I'll do 15/15 minus 13/15. And I'm going to be left with 2/15. I can cross out my D because I was done with my drawing there. I usually wait until I'm done with all my equations and everything just to make sure I don't need to update my drawing at all. Now I'm done drawing and solving. And finally, I have the letter W, and W stands for right. I need to take my answer here, and I need to put it in written form. So I need to put it in the form of a sentence. Let's go back to what the question's asking us. It says, what fraction of the garden did Summer weed? So I'm going to start by restating that question. Summer weeded 2/15 of the garden. And so if this here is 2/15, how I can check to make sure that my answer is correct is I can add those together. This 2/3 we figured out was 10/15. And this 1/5 we figured out was also 3/15. So if we add 3/15 plus 2/15 plus 10/15, I have 2 plus 3 is 5, plus 10 is 15. I get 15/15. So just if I wanted to check, of course, I can always use the inverse since I added, since I was subtracting here. I can add to make sure that all of my fractions add up to one whole. So now that I've written my answer in sentence form, I can cross out my W, and we're going to move on to number 2. Jing spent 1/3 of her money on a pack of pens, 1/2 of her money on a pack of markers, and 1/8 of her money on a pack of pencils. What fraction of her money is left? So what we're looking for here is what fraction of her money is left after she's bought her pack of pens, her pack of markers, and her pack of pencils. She spent 1/3 of her money on a pack of pens, spent 1/2 of her money on a pack of markers, and 1/8 of her money on a pack of pencils. So I can cross out my R, and then we need to draw. So I'm going to just draw a single tape diagram for this one as well, because we're talking about, we don't know the entire dollar amount of that money, but we know that all of her money is going to be represented by one whole of her money, all of her money, and we're talking about a fraction of that money. So we're going to break up that money into 1/3. Pens. And half. Now we got markers. And we have 1/8 of her money on pencils. And we're trying to figure out what's left. How much of her money is left over? So again, we know that this whole thing here is one whole. First, let's add 1/3 plus 1/2 plus 1/8. To start, I'll do 1/3. Let's start by doing 1/3 plus 1/8, and then we'll add 1/2 afterwards. That way, we're not adding three all at once with 3 different denominators. I know 1/2 is going to be easy for me to figure out afterward, so I'm going to do 1/3 and 1/8 first. So 1/3 plus 1/8. If I want to find a common denominator between those two, I'll just multiply them together for this one. So 8 times 3 is 24. So 1/3 becomes, to make this 24, we have to multiply by 8. And multiply by 8. 3 times 8 is 24. 1 times 8 is 8. And always remember, I can multiply the top and the bottom of my fraction by anything I want. As long as I multiply the top and the bottom of my fraction by the same number, I'm not changing the value of that fraction. It'll be the same fraction. It'll just be an equivalent fraction with a different numerator and a different denominator with the same value. So I'm going to do this one, I'm going to multiply by 8, but this one I'm going to multiply by 3, because again, I'm trying to get the same denominator for those two. So I have 8 times 3 and 1 times 3, and I get 3 24ths. What I'm going to get here is 11 24ths. And now I need to add a 1/2 as well. So I have 1/2 times 11, or times plus, plus 11 24ths. And I know that 1/2 is the same as 12 24ths, because 12 is half of 24. Halves are easy to figure out in that way. You do your denominator divided by 2 will be your numerator, and then you're going to have a fraction that's equivalent to 1/2. So I have 12 24ths plus 11 24ths. And I'm going to get 23 24ths. And this is how much this is all of this right here. That is 23 24ths. But I need to figure out what this is here, what's left over. So if I have 1 minus 23 24ths, well, 1 is the same as 24 24ths. Minus 23 24ths. Some of you might have already done that in your head, but I want to write it down. I'm going to end up with 1 24th left over. I'm done drawing and I'm done doing my arithmetic over here. What I need to do now is I need to write my answer in the form of a sentence. So my sentence is going to be Jane has 1 24th of her money. Wow. And that is our answer. So the tape diagram, this is why we draw, because the tape diagram will really help us remember what we're looking for. It's really easy to get to maybe here and say 23 24ths. Okay, well, that's our answer. That's how much she has left over. But wait a second, we were adding together all of the amounts that she spent. We have to subtract from 1 to figure out what's left over, what part of the whole is still left. Because we start with 1 whole, and then we're taking away all of those parts that were spent. So that is a good strategy, this RDW. for organizing our word problems and making sure that we're taking our time and doing all of the necessary steps to get that right answer and to put it in a form that we're going to get full credit for as well. So that's all we have time for today. Thank you guys so much for tuning in, and look forward to seeing you next time.